Okay, welcome back to our speedrun with the Reti and the Nimzowitsch Sicilian. We are starting out from 1352 today. Let's see if we can get it up to 1400. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see how the rest of the journey goes. We are going up to 2200 plus. Okay, let's jump into the action. We're playing 5 plus 5. So we have a little bit of time to talk and explain. Knight f3, we are of course going for the Reti c5. Haven't seen this move yet all that much. It is quite a good move. We'll go for our standard setup with g3 and bishop g2, e6. Okay, sure, I'll just castle. a6. Okay, first kind of weird move by the opponent. a6, just a pawn move on the edge of the board. Doesn't seem to do a ton. Let's just play, d4 looks reasonable. c4 looks reasonable. You could also play e4. You could do a lot of things. Those are usually c4 and e4 are sort of the way I play this opening. Actually, d4 immediately. Yeah, let's just play c4. I feel like this is sort of the standard. This is what I usually go for. I wonder if our opponent will play. Whoa. I was going to say, I wonder if they'll play b5, h5. So I guess they're kind of saying they want to attack our king. We could play h4 to block that pawn, but honestly, black has very few pieces developed, so I don't think I need to react to this in a fearful way. I'm just going to keep playing in the center. And if black played h4, I would just ignore it. Okay, knight e5. So I guess hitting a pawn, but opponent is breaking quite a lot of opening principles. So far they only have one piece developed. They've moved it twice. They're also making a lot of weird pawn moves on the edge of the board. So this is definitely something I should be able to exploit. Now, I don't necessarily even feel like I need to defend c4 because I kind of want to like exploit what black's doing. If they want to waste more time grabbing a pawn, I don't care that much. At the same time, the position is quite closed, so it's not necessarily easy for me to like directly attack black here. Possibly I would even be justified to play something like f4, f5. But okay, let's keep it simple. Let's play b3. One thing I like about this move is I'm also setting up my bishop to go to the long diagonal, which looks like a nice place to develop it. Okay, so let's play bishop b2, and now I'm eyeing this undefended knight here. So probably if black doesn't react to that, I can do some sort of tactic like knight takes e6 with a discovered attack. Okay, and they do not, and I do believe knight takes e6 looks like a good move. Are there any other, is that the best discovery I have available to me? I don't see anything better, but this looks very good. I think I'm going to get at least a free pawn. Okay, so giving up a bishop with check, I don't really see how this helps my opponent's situation because this knight is still going to be attacked, so okay. I guess at the end of the day, they can play knight g4 here, but I'm up, what, a piece? I'm up a whole piece, so I can afford to give back some material here. So what's the best way to do this? I don't want to allow my bishop to be taken. Like queen d4 looks pretty solid. Bishop takes g7 certainly is possible. Yeah, bishop takes g7 counterattacks the rook. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with this. So, okay, we can certainly take with the king. Can I play like queen c2? I don't know. Let's just keep it simple and take. This seems totally fine. So, okay, we've got what, like two bishops, or a bishop and knight versus a rook. So let's see, we can just drop the bishop back. We could go queen d4, also looks really good. Kind of like queen d4, centralizing the queen. Just trying to make sure there's no tactics where black can win this bishop, but I don't see any way they can, like queen d4, queen g5, we could just play bishop f6 or whatever. So this looks good. And black still has these, you know, black is not going to really be able to attack me that effectively with several other pieces not playing in the game. Okay, queen g5 as expected. Now, actually, probably bishop f6 would be a mistake because it would get pinned. But I think just drawing back with bishop e5 looks absolutely fine. Definitely want to get this knight into the game at the first opportunity. Okay, h4, but I don't think this does a ton because this pawn right here is well defended. So let's play knight c3. And now this knight is about to land on e4 with a massive thud. Bishop takes or pawn takes. Let's go pawn takes. Okay, knight e4 coming. Black can give me a check on the f file, but I could drop my king back. I could block with a bishop. That doesn't look to be much of a problem. Okay, queen does check. I'll just go back with my king. I can even bring my rook over now. That looks kind of nice. Always love to play with all the pieces. So I got my knight in the game. The only piece that isn't playing is the rook. So pretty excited about getting to play rook f1. And notice these two pieces over here still not playing and actually extremely difficult to involve in the game. They're sort of trapped. These pawns are frozen. All right, d5. So black is doing the right thing by trying to, I guess, get this bishop out, but it's kind of, they're in a tough spot. And okay, we've got every piece playing in the game now, so don't expect our opponent to last much longer from here. So the queen's going to move, and then next we're just going to take this free pawn, blast open the center, and get at this king, which is stranded right here, unable to castle. Okay, black offers a queen trade, which, I mean, I guess that's kind of the best damage control they can do. Okay, fine. We could avoid it too, but I mean, all our pieces are still really active here, so this is totally fine. And we're up material. We can win an endgame if we have to, but it's going to be hard for our opponent to even kind of survive very long here. Rook a7. Well, I guess they're getting off of this diagonal, but all right. Maybe I can play knight e4 and come in here. So I'm threatening a fork, which my opponent didn't stop. I don't even know if that was the best fork. Maybe knight d6 was even better, but I mean, I guess this one is certainly fine. And sure, let's take a pawn. We are up, what, a bishop and 2 pawns. This rook is still weirdly trapped, and we can even finish it off with a skewer. Easy to find tactics when you have more active pieces. Yep, that one really just came down to standard opening principles. Our opponent moved the same piece around a bunch, moved a bunch of rook pawns. Well, the way to exploit that is you just get all your pieces into the game. Okay, so we get to go for a Sicilian, and we'll go for the Nimzowitsch Sicilian since that's the whole theme of the speedrun. And as often happens when you play this, the opponent goes for a long think. This is one of the points of this is it's an unusual system, so we're trying to take our opponent out of their comfort zone and give them something they're not used to looking at. All right, let's hit this bishop. b6 is not a great square for the knight generally, but just gaining a tempo on this bishop is worth it. Sometimes people will even play bishop b3 and you get to trap that thing, but bishop e2. So now our plan is to try to start increasing the pressure on this overextended e5 pawn. So we're going to point the bishop at that. Kind of hard for white to play d4 because if we take and knight takes, then e5 hangs. So maybe white should play c3 to set that up, and they do. Now it's kind of tempting to play c4 and try to prevent this, but we don't have that much development yet. I think that's a little overambitious, so let's just keep developing. So we're not, if white plays reasonably, we can't win this pawn by force, but we still can get a good position. And here I'm going to play d6 to just start chipping away at those pawns. If trades, this pawn will be isolated and a target. When you play like sort of a weird opening like the Nimzowitsch Sicilian, it can be a bit of a trap to get away from using opening principles yourself as well. So don't forget to keep developing, bring all the pieces into the game. Now, this move, I thought I was threatening e5, and I think I am. I've got 1, 2, 3 attackers, 1, 2 defenders. So I think I can just take that pawn. I don't really see why that's not a free pawn. Bishop b5 check at the end. I can just block bishop d7. Yeah, I think I can just take this. So I'll trade this first because I don't want to be forced to recapture with my king over here. And yeah, we're going to take. I don't see anything wrong with just grabbing this free pawn. And white even has to be a little careful that this pawn doesn't drop off on the long diagonal. Okay, so we'll just block. And this is defended by both knights. If takes, I think I'll recapture with this knight, keeping everything compact and towards the center. And now that we're up a pawn, we're totally fine with trades. Obviously, the more material you're up, the more it typically benefits you to trade and get towards an endgame where you can use that to win. So let's see. I mean, white has to try to figure out some way to get some sort of compensation here, but I don't think there really is any way. We're just we're up a pawn. Okay, knight comes out. Now this allows me to take and mess up white's kingside pawns too. So I think I'll take the opportunity to do that. And then I can even trade off this guy too. Now normally I wouldn't be super excited to give up this fianchetto bishop, which is very nice. But it looks like this is going to force a lot of trades into a really nice endgame for white. Because once I take this, this bishop is no longer defended. So my opponent's going to have to initiate this trade. I'll take. Finally, it's going to be a knight versus bishop endgame where I'm up a pawn and white has a really very nasty pawn structure. Taking here would be a mistake because I would just grab this bishop. So white has to play in between rook check. I'll take. And yeah, we're up a pawn and don't like this pressure here. So now f6. Now that our bishop is not here, there's less downside to doing this. Just gotta, don't castle. This king's defending the knight, so we'll be a little careful about that. But yeah, we're doing totally fine. bishop comes over. I guess I can go knight e5, king f7 as a way to get this rook into the game. Obviously, king f7 first would have dropped the knight, so I'm just making sure that knight is safe. And I think f4 would actually lose this bishop, because I can go knight f7, bishop, rook g8, and actually trap that in my own territory, which is kind of funny. But okay, now we're ready to bring the rooks. Once again, f4 would lose the bishop. This time, knight g4. Bishop f4, probably white's best move. Yeah, I actually don't. A little bit regretting putting my knight out here, because now when I move this, the rook can come into d7, which is not something I really want to allow. I'm not sure if I can avoid that at this point. I could just play rook fd8 and play, then I don't really like that I'm allowing this, but the rook endgame would still be very promising. Otherwise, like knight c4, rook d8. Yeah, I don't really like that. Let's just do this. I think I can still win this rook endgame. I don't want to let this rook come in. So yeah, probably, I think this was a bit inaccurate how I did this, but we're still up a pawn, so still in a good spot. And up on the clock as well. Yeah, I'll just defend that with b6. My king can even come out to e6 and sort of try to use the doubled pawn as a shield. Okay, well, so this pawn is weak. I don't really want to just give it a, like, I could play rook ac8, but let's, or king f6. Let's just play rook d5 for now and defend this. And then I want to start going after my opponent's weak pawns over here. Okay, so let's hit this one. So yeah, I would say my technique in this endgame has been a little bit sketchy, but we are still up a pawn. Opponent's getting really low on time. F4. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy to just trade this pawn off. And I'll block. Again, up a pawn, not scared of trades. So take obviously recaptures. If rook h4, probably just h5, rook a4. Maybe in that case we could go ahead and take this, because then we're going to be crashing through and winning a lot of white's other pawns as well. But okay, so now we've got a rook endgame. We're only up one pawn, which is not always enough to win in a rook endgame, but these pawns are also weak. So I think we're in good shape. And then here's where our pawn majority is. So let's start advancing these guys and start working towards making a passed pawn. I'll bring the king up. Obviously, in the endgame, you always want to use the king actively. And let's play rook c4, cutting off white's king, thinking about going after some of these other pawns. Also preventing f4, which I don't know if that was a move I cared about, but might as well prevent it anyway. Okay, I guess we can play f4 king and just start pushing these pawns up. But then f4 king g4. I don't know if I love it. I don't want to push these pawns too early and allow white to activate their king. Rook a4 a3. I don't know if that does a ton for me. I guess I could also play king d5 and try to get my king up here. This looks pretty good. Try to come in this way. And of course the king and pawn endgame is going to be winning for us very easily. That's the king and pawn generally is the easiest one to win when you're up a pawn. Let's play rook a5. So the idea is if a3, king c4, now we will just come in. So we could do king c4 or just king e6. King c4, rook c7. I mean, both look good, but no reason to give our opponent any counterplay, I think. Okay, and they do just time out. All right, black pieces again. And I like to do this tricky sort of Nimzowitsch style move against bishop c4. And the idea is e5, we're always going to meet with d5. But if not, we'll just play for d5 anyway. And just continue normal development. I guess just bishop e7 is fine. Looking to castle next move. I think what I want to do here is try to set up b5, c4. So maybe a6. Rook b8, bishop d6, maybe a little annoying. Okay, let's try this. And c4. So our plan is to lock this bishop out of the game. And let's play bishop f5. We'll just let, if white wants to trade, then we get a free move to get our rook into the game. But meanwhile, we're essentially playing up a piece because this bishop is kind of dead over there. Yeah, can do knight e4, h6. Knight d4. Just start with h6, see where that bishop wants to go. Okay, it decides to go back. I actually don't think I do want to play knight e4 because this knight is kind of awkward here. So how do I improve the position? I could just move my queen off the open b file. I don't want to allow white to play b3 and get their queen out, so maybe even queen a5. I don't know. Sure, let's try this. And I can just bring my rooks to the center next. I want to check this moment after. I feel like I had like maybe a better plan that I missed there. Maybe knight d4 would have been a good way to do it. Let's just bring the rooks in. And here, just tuck my bishop away. All right, so white is trying to get their bishop out, which is good. Can I play g5 and try to win a piece? I mean, it certainly weakens my king a lot, but maybe I can get away with that. I would also love to get a knight into d3, but for the moment that is blocked. Okay, g5, knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes, check. Bishop g6, bishop b1, knight h7. I mean, it's probably good for me, but I just don't want to like deal with exposing my king to that degree. Okay, let's go knight e4. So we get this rook on the open file, and if knight takes, bishop takes. Right, okay. So pawn doesn't do that, and we could take f takes. I don't think those doubled pawns are much of a problem, so I think what I want to do is actually knight c5, looking at these squares. Really want to get my knight to one of these two squares. Okay, so queen eight, this is something to watch out for. It's knight d3, queen f5 check, king back, seems fine. Or even g6 is possible. Okay, queen comes in, threatens this. Maybe just queen c7. And now this pawn right here is quite a weakness for white. I guess I can just bring my rook in. I think it was maybe a little foolhardy for white to move here because that rook was covering, or the knight rather, was covering, preventing my rook from coming in. Okay, this... I think I can just go after this pawn now. I don't want to take and then just let white take back, because this is supporting this knight, which is really nice for me. hitting my knight and rook, but I think I can just ignore this and take here. I think that's a little better than taking and letting this pawn escape. So we've got an extra pawn. This is a protected passer now. We're also looking at this. Hopefully I'm not getting knight forked here. I don't think I am. Knight hits this, but our rook can just move away. Maybe even, I mean, rook d6 looks good, or rook g6. This is more forcing. Just make sure we're not getting forked by something like this, but it's defended. So knight's attacked and pawn is attacked. And this rook looking at f2 is kind of nice as well. Okay, so we could maybe play knight takes f2, but I think just rook takes a3. I don't see why not to keep it simple. Also, I don't want to run into this knight d5 fork. So we're up 2 pawns, and actually this pawn is very close to just running. I guess we can play knight takes f2 now to simplify, taking advantage of this. Simplify and win another pawn. And I don't think white can do really any funny business. Any sort of in-between move they attempt, I have knight takes h3 check ready. So yeah, we are up, what is it, 3 pawns now. We could even afford to give up our knight if we had to, but obviously no reason to do that. Okay, so knight takes c4. What's better, rook takes g3 or knight takes h3? I don't know, both look extremely winning. It's kind of hard to choose. Let's just, let's do this. And I guess just b takes c4 is going to be fine. White can get the knight back, but it's going to be rook and pawn endgames where we're up a huge number of pawns. Sure, I'll eliminate this last pawn. And force the rook trade. Why not? Always nice to just eliminate your opponent's pieces when you can. All right, one blunder. Let's see where that was. Rook c2. So we're supposed to take rook c2 apparently. Oh, okay, nice. White had knight e3, and then if rook takes, knight comes in. Okay. And what about, there's one other, I was curious about this spot, like somewhere around here. Okay, yeah, it looks like knight d4 or knight e4. So trading pieces, this makes sense. When your opponent has a very bad piece, it's almost like you're up material. So you can trade to sort of try to isolate that piece. So, okay, that makes sense. Let's try to get one more game in. And looks like okay, had to pause the recording for a minute there, but we have just got sort of French position type structure, but a good one because we've already got the bishop here, and this knight on c3 is preventing pawn c3, which is what white would normally want to do to link up the pawn chain. Queen b6, knight a4, I don't love. I could just play bishop e7. Queen c7 also looks good. I guess let's just keep it really simple. I am trying to keep it simple as a strategy in these games, just as I found that's what works really well at these rating levels. Don't, just don't let your opponent complicate the game or do anything crazy. And usually you get an opportunity. Okay, castles, knight g5 maybe. It's not something I'm like super excited about. So I guess I can play h6. I do want a castle and eventually put a rook on the c file. Maybe this rook even. b4, I'll just retreat. Not really worried about that. Because this just softens up the b file even more. Can I do a tactic, let loose piece on the line of my piece? Always a red flag. And I think the way to exploit that is knight e5 takes, bishop takes. Knight takes b4 would be a mistake because then the rook defends it. So, okay, we've snagged an extra pawn. It's a good start. Also threatening maybe some sort of skewer coming in there. Okay, yeah, let's go for the skewer. It's not winning a piece in a super straightforward way because white can play c4, but still, this alignment of the bishop with the major pieces is going to be very inconvenient for white at the very least. Probably white should play queen c3 rather than sort of walk into this, but okay, let's start gaining some time on this queen, and then we're probably going to put some pressure on this knight. Possibly would have been more accurate to play. Not sure if inserting rook d8 was the best move. But maybe it was. I'm not. Well, I don't know. It's a little bit tricky either way. I think we can just keep piling up attackers on that knight and it's going to work. Okay, white decides to just give up the exchange. Fair enough. But now we're up a pawn and an exchange. So basically all we have to do to win this one is just trade down. Okay, I'm going to hit that and also prepare to come in with my queen. So we're infiltrating to the second rank, and we would certainly love a queen trade since we're up so much material. Just got to make sure white can't attack us on the king side. That's what they seem to be trying to do, but they don't really have a lot of firepower to back that up. And okay, let's force a trade of rooks. And it's actually White's king that might be in some danger here. And I guess I can play like queen d2 and set up rook c1. Queen c1 check also looks good, but this looks pretty effective. Rook c1. Don't really see a good way for my opponent to stop that. Yeah, I mean, I guess White could play like knight d3 or something, like sacrifice a knight to just delay the inevitable by a few moves, but can't really, their only check is queen. Okay, so queen e2 blocks. Could play queen f4, rook c1. What is the best way to do this? I think queen c1 actually. So I want to, if king f2, rook c2, and if queen e1, then queen f4, and rook c1 is a threat. Obviously, anything goes winning, even trading queens, but I'm just trying to finish this game off a little bit more quickly, and the opponent just resigns. Okay, good games. All right, I think, unfortunately, I'm out of time today. I gotta go to a meeting, so 1400 will have to wait for another day, but we've got some interesting games in. Got to see using some opening principles, just developing pieces and controlling the center mostly, and following it up with a few tactics. But I will see you next time when we try to get to 1400.